Thank you for joining. My name is Matt Longi. I'll be your host for this webinar today and how to build a sales tech stack from scratch. Joining me on this webinar will be Joe Kenny of Pipedrive. Joe's got some great experience that he's going to be sharing with you guys, as well as David Gable of Kixi. And what I thought we could do is just maybe take a minute. Joe, if you want to introduce yourself first, talk about some of your background, some of your experiences in sales, and then David, if you want to follow, and then we'll get right into the content.
Yeah, sure. And thank you guys for having me. So I've been with Pipedrive for 5 years, just over 5 years. Started as a sales rep in our New York office. And over time, I've done a lot of things, just about everything related to the sales effort. So I've been a sales engineer. I was the sort of interim sales manager in the US for a bit. And I've got a lot. It's funny building a tech stack from scratch. It's funny as we put this webinar together, getting a lot of perspective on how the product with Pipedrive has grown, and as our use cases and what we needed out of it has grown. So definitely seen it come a long way since I started there. Been in sales my whole career, which is not, I guess, super long, but yeah, definitely excited to go through it.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. David, tell us about you and what you do and what you enjoy. And you've got a great background, interesting career there at Kixi. So
sure.
Share more with the audience here.
Yeah, my background is an interesting one in that I actually came from the legal field. So actually I was in-house counsel before I got into sales. My background at Kixi, I'm now the head of sales, but interestingly enough, as I came up through Kixi came up with Pipedrive. Joe's career at Pipedrive kind of mirrors my career at Kixi. And during that time, we used Pipedrive to grow our business from a small little WeWork office in Santa Monica to these offices you kind of see behind me that are much bigger and a much larger team now. Yeah. And the whole time, we really grew up with Pipedrive, not only as something we used internally as a CRM, but also as an integration partner for all the cool stuff that Kixi does, integrating that within Pipedrive. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And having worked with both of you guys in producing this webinar, I think there's a lot of kind of fun stories and things you can both share. Yeah. Around what does it take. And I think that's maybe where we'll start, guys, here is as we get into the content. I do want to ask you guys, stick around. We've got some special offers from Kixi and from Pipedrive, special just for you guys that have taken the time to join us. So stick around for that. We've got some things we want to share with you that could be pretty strong incentive for you guys to take a look at Pipedrive and Kixi. But with that, it is in my experience, again, I'm Matt Longi. I'm with the Marketing Gurus. We're marketing partners with Kixi. We work very closely with the team. I've been inside Pipedrive quite a bit as we are doing kind of the quarterly and monthly and weekly numbers for Kixi as we are growing the business. So as the marketing partner to Kixi, I get to both step back as well as step inside and look at the business. And in my experience on the marketing side and working with sales, we always talk about the tech stack, the MarTech stack or the sales tech stack. And in this case, we really want to focus on the sales tech stack because it's really critical, I believe, as a business today. If you're scaling, if you're building, if you're growing, sure, hire another rep, you could do that. But then how do you automate? How do you repeat? How do you scale? How do you drive that efficiency with your business? So I think there's a lot to be learned, David, from your experience and Joe, from yours as well, in both of your respective businesses and how much you've grown here in the US. Starting with that foundational platform, like what should every business really be basing their sales capabilities on? And then there's a number of apps that sit on top of that. And I think what we determined is there's really that foundational platform and then the four key apps, app 2, 3, 4, 5 that really sit on top that can help a sales team be super productive, super efficient, really drive those leads to a successful deal. So I think there's a lot of context that we'll want to share. So David, maybe if you want to kick things off, David, and then we'll start with kind of the foundation, which frankly is CRM, customer relationship management. So walk us through kind of your perspective on why you would claim and state that CRM is kind of the foundation for a sales team.
Totally. And it's interesting you actually mentioned, coming from a MarTech background. I feel like in a lot of ways, that's kind of where the industry is headed. I feel MarTech was the thing 10 years ago, right? Everyone was interested in new marketing technology, and marketing people in general adopted technology much faster than us in the sales world. And I think now is kind of our time to shine, where all of a sudden sales is like, hey, like we want to adopt some of the same strategies that is that marketing be so effective for inbound over the previous decade. And we want to do the same thing for the way we sell. And adopt technology and finally make that shift, which is really cool. So you already gave the big reveal. I think the foundational platform everyone needs is a CRM. I think rather than me just belabor like why I think a CRM is important, let me actually just start with like a quick anecdote. So like every time we get an inbound lead that comes in through Kixi, my reps, qualify the lead, as I'm sure a lot of the people listening, their reps do the same. And the first thing that I have them find out is what CRM are they using? And I can tell how easy a deal is going to be by whether the title of that deal inside our Pipedrive has no CRM in brackets in front of it or a CRM name in brackets in front of it, right? Like it is probably the most determinative factor. And the reason is that if you don't have a CRM, there's going to be two steps to this Kixi adoption. One, we're going to help you guys adopt a CRM, and two, we're going to help you guys adopt Kixi. Because as much as I'd love to sell Kixi without a CRM, I'd be doing the customer a disservice if I push something that's by the way, for those of you who've never heard of Kixi before, we automate calling and texting and integrate that with a CRM. You need a CRM first and foremost because that's your single source of truth, right? That's where all these other apps we're going to be talking about, that's what they're going to integrate with. It's where I would say probably the biggest bottleneck to your process probably lies if you don't have one. I've got lots of love for everybody operating off of Google Sheets out there, right? And who are, making it work. And you've got, a tab in Google Sheets for like brand new prospects. And then once you've gotten a hold of them, you move it to the other tab of Google Sheets, like we've connected with the prospect. And then a third tab of Google Sheets, which is they've bought the product, And it's definitely, you can totally force your way through it. And you can be an absolute Hercules and like make business happen that way. Totally can. I've seen lots of people do it. Yeah. But man, is it easier to have a real CRM that will help you along the way and give you a more granular reporting and all sorts of great stuff that I should mention, because I know Joe is very humble, but Pipedrive does an amazing job of doing that out of the box, like with having a very delineated, pre-built, granular stream of steps along that process. So those three tabs I just mentioned in Google Sheets, brand new prospect, in communication or reached out to prospect, bought, current customer. Those can now be like reached out, opened first email, qualifying, qualified, talking to decision maker, closing, and each of those steps, and we'll get into this later on, can have a bunch of automations that help your team along rather than having to manually do a lot of stuff. So anyway, for those reasons and more, I think a CRM is probably the most fundamental thing a business can adopt early on.
Yeah. Well, let me ask the audience. I mean, we've got some folks here on the call. Alex, Andy, Barry, Steven, Shania. You guys believe what David's saying here? Do you agree? Raise your hand if you think CRM is foundational. It's important. If you have CRM, raise your hand. If you believe that CRM is a good thing that's helping to drive your business, irrespective of the CRM you're using. Not trying to pick favorites here, but it looks like we've got lots of hand raising. So I think most of you are saying yes, CRM. And for those of you that didn't raise your hand, maybe there's an opportunity here to learn more about why CRM is foundational. So Joe, turning it to you, what would you say to someone who's maybe kind of in that Excel spreadsheet, stuck in that mode, and they're really looking to break out and go, okay, how do we start to build some efficiency? Why CRM? And then maybe even a little bit about why Pipedrive. Tell us why you built Pipedrive. Who are you focused on? Why is this an offering in the market?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I remember early on I asked our head of product at the time who our biggest competitor is. Is it some of the ones of traditionally we've targeted maybe smaller teams than some of the bigger names, right? And the idea was there's a lot of enterprise software out there that's built for the entire business. Usually the executive at a large company is sort of the buyer, makes that decision, and they kind of get what they want out of it, right? Pipedrive is built for smaller teams. You don't need like a developer to set it up for you, right? And what they wanted to do is put it like, there is a need for a CRM, but it needs to be set up properly for your business, I think. And so a lot of the negative connotation around a CRM is people probably have worked with one that wasn't really well set up for their business. And so that I might work with a spreadsheet. If I was in that, I'd probably just get Pipedrive. But if I was in that scenario, I might work with a spreadsheet as well. And one of the, I mean, when you're thinking about sorry, if I go back to the beginning of my point, I thought it was one of these, like Salesforce, one of these big companies would have been our biggest competitor. And our head of product said it's actually pen and paper and spreadsheet because salespeople don't want to be slowed down, right? You're making your money on the phone all day. And so it's great if I have a CRM that works, but if I don't, I'm not going to stop to figure it out. I'm probably just going to do something else. Like my mom works at a company. They have a CRM. She doesn't know how to use it. She updates the CRM on Friday afternoon. So because her boss needs her to, but if you got reports from that instance of their CRM, you would think she only worked for a couple hours on Friday afternoon, and I'm pretty sure she's working more than that. So, but outside of like, it gives you a framework, right? So you're doing sales, and there's all these different ways of doing it. But what this allows you to do is build a framework. So I've got a path where ideally a deal would go down this path. Every deal is a bit different, but it allows me to then try different things so I can test it and measure results. When it's working well, that's what it does. And if you've got a spreadsheet, it sounds like a subtle point, but having to overwrite everything, having to write, if I had a cell that said, this is the next time I'm calling this person, well, then when I write, whatever I write in there, whatever used to be there is gone. And so I only have my most recent data point, if that makes sense. And the hard part about that is you only see how these deals really end up. You don't see the full story. You don't get to see what's working, what's not. And if you have a CRM that's set up properly for you, you can go by, well, Mike's our best sales rep. So what's he doing? I can go into his deals. He calls, he mixes up, he calls morning and afternoon. He sends an email with every voicemail. You can really drill into it. But without that sort of platform to gather and filter through and really focus on that, you're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall. And so, yeah, I'd say I could go on. I could probably talk about that for the full hour, like why you need a CRM. But I think it just gives you that framework so you know where you are, where you want to go, and you can try different things. Because I don't know, it'd be like switching your swing on every hole of a golf, when you're playing golf. Which, if there's any golfers, that's a bad thing to do. So.
Yeah, it's that consistency, it's that repeatability. I think that's where you drive success. And I think one of the things I liked about using Pipedrive and working with Kixie and looking at the numbers, it's easy to use. I mean, I've used Salesforce, I've used Pipedrive, I've used HubSpot. I mean, I've used a whole bunch of CRMs as the marketer trying to understand the sales side of things. So I'm not deep in it every day, but I think one of the things that I look at, Joe, is can I get to some kind of insight fairly quickly? So David, you and I have had a lot of discussions around kind of the Kixie pipeline and what that looks like and our lead flow and our lead management, lead gen, and all that. And I think it's just easier. So I think, if I was to say, hey, recommending a CRM, just look for something that works for your business. But ultimately, as a sales rep, I just need something that's easy to use. I can enter data quickly. It's in there. As the sales manager, I know, as a sales VP and leader, like you, David, and you, Joe, you guys want to see kind of the full team visibility. So I think CRM gives you that, whereas spreadsheets and certainly paper cards, you're never going to get that. So I think there's I don't think we really have to sell people on CRM. It's probably going to be something along the lines of what's the right set of features for you. And I think the second thing, and maybe going to our next point, is what else can you do to extend the capability of CRM beyond that? So David, maybe if you want to take us to one of the key apps that you want to build on top of CRM to, again, extend that value of what the core foundation can offer. So maybe tell us about Lead Capture. What are we talking about here?
Totally. So, and I just want to, one other thing I want to add too, just because I hear Joe being incredibly diplomatic, which I love. I'll be a little express and candid about it, which is the fact that, as you mentioned, Matt, Pipedrive, if you buy it, it is built for your sales team. It is already organized to be a successful solution for your sales team to adopt, which is, I'm biased, but it's the growth, engine of the entire company. And you're not going to have to hire a Pipedrive admin to build out a bunch of stuff. They're not going to put API access or automation access behind additional paywalls. They might not have sales in the name of Pipedrive, but I guarantee it is more sales oriented than a CRM that has sales in the name. Like
So, Dave,
100%.
you're saying that Pipedrive works better for your sales force than maybe some other.
I think it does. I can't put my finger on the name of it, but there's
I'm
probably
just-
one in particular that I can think of. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I think tying back to the point you made, David, about like how sales is just getting into like maybe slower to adopt some of these things.
Yep.
If it's not a good fit, they're not going to use it. That's it.
Right.
Like you're in marketing, like, you know, a lot of marketing, I don't know much about marketing. It all happens online, right? And so you either have to wrap your mind around that stuff or pick something else to do. In sales, you can still get around it enough. You can be good enough on the phone to make a living, but you're just making your life harder than it needs to be if you've got that like the repeatability. You can see what works, especially where something's, you know, long sales cycles. You can't switch it up a bunch of times.
Yeah.
You can't try 3 different things in a 6-month span if your sales cycle is a year, because then you're not going to know which of them worked and anything like that. So
yeah, for sure. Well, hey, before we get into lead capture, let me just ask the audience,
Yeah.
how many of you, raise your hand, how many of you are in sales, you're representing sales, you may be in sales ops? Tell me, I'd love to get a show of hands. How many of you are kind of from the sales side of your business? I'm seeing out of our attendees about maybe half or so, a little more. Give me those hands if you're in sales, you're part of sales, sales ops. If you're a sales rep, you're a sales leader, sales manager. Okay, so I think more than half. So that's good. So I think it's good to know that, you know, if you're in sales, you know, what kind of, you know, do you like your CRM? I've spent a lot of time on the road visiting customers, speaking at conferences, et cetera. More times than not, when I ask the question, I ask for their show of hands, how many of you love your CRM? Unfortunately, I don't see that a lot, particularly from salespeople. So ideally, you know, if you can find a CRM, you know, platform, a solution to drive that. And I think part of the love also comes from, thank you guys for sharing that. I'll lower all the hands now. David, tell us, you know, so you've got CRM. We've gone from the spreadsheets, we've gone from the index cards. You know, the Glengarry, Glen Ross are no longer in the special box. It's now all online. I can access it through, say, Pipedrive, what have you. Now I'm talking about, okay, I need to build some capability around capturing leads and understanding and managing that. What are we talking about here with lead capture? Let's dive into this.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? I'll probably talk about this using my own kind of personal anecdote. So I came to Kixie, and at the time I started at Kixie, we were entirely inbound, which means that every single sale, all of our growth was tied to inbound leads coming into Kixie. Yeah. And those were captured by someone signing up for Kixie, signing up for a trial of Kixie. That was about 3% of our website visitors signed up for Kixie who visited the website. And I, wanting a promotion into a leadership role at Kixie on the sales side, to be totally frank, wanted to kind of crack outbound, right? And I thought to myself, there's 2 ways I can go about this. One, I can do what I see all these other big successful companies having already established, which is I hire a bunch of outbound SDRs or BDRs. I have them reach out to businesses on LinkedIn who might be interested in Kixie, and I just totally cold try and bring those people in and convince them to use Kixie. That's one option. The other option is 97% of the people who visit Kixie do not sign up for a trial. 97%. What about those guys? Like, what about those guys who are, in my mind, lower hanging fruit? Like, they're actually interested in Kixie. We just haven't captured that data, like who that person is, because they haven't signed up for a trial. So to be totally explicit, what I did was I looked at a couple different lead capture services like Leadfeeder and Snitcher. These are platforms that essentially plug into your website. And when someone visits that website, they do reverse IP lookup and maybe scrape the cookies and cache. A little big brothery, but super effective for a sales team. And they try to determine who that person is, or at least what business did that person come from, right? And now I've got something that's much easier. Now I've got outreach coming from a BDR or SDR, not to someone who's never heard of Kixie, not to someone who maybe has already adopted a competitor recently, but someone who was actively interested in Kixie. We know what web pages they visited. We might know that they're using Pipedrive that we integrate really well with. We might know that they've got, ActiveCampaign or some email automation engine that we can trigger auto calls off of because of email opens and that kind of stuff. I know this information because of that lead capture platform, and now it's actionable because it's all being stored in our CRM, which is kind of a good transition.
Yeah. And David, essentially what this is doing is prioritizing your outbound. So instead of a whole bunch of random cold calling, you can now say, well, wait a minute, we had company X, Y, and Z hit Kixie.com. Let's prioritize our outbound efforts on those folks, because they're already raising their hand in a way and expressing interest in what you guys have to offer.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out. The company we're using, we've got no affiliation in the brand name, is Snitcher. It's like a little European company. They're great, and it provides a ton of insight about people who visit Kixie.com and haven't signed up for a website.
Yeah, and I'll give again, no affiliation with G2, but I'll give it if you guys we'll mention some apps today, and again, we're not promoting necessarily one over the other. But Snitcher, Lead Feeder, David mentioned. I'd recommend if you guys are interested in this and you are actively building a tech stack, I'm happy to communicate with you guys if you wish. Also G2.com, G as in George or golf. G2.com basically it's a ranking review rating site. Think of it as like a consumer reports for software. I spend a lot of time on G2 just looking at one tool over the other. So when you look up Snitcher or Lead Feeder, one of these tools, you'll see a whole bunch of others. Maybe you find one that works better for you. It's a better price point, whatever. But there's lots of ways we can certainly help you learn how to shop for these apps and how to.
I should mention this too. If you're looking for one, I would find one that integrates with your CRM and/or integrates with Zapier. Zapier being just an engine that literally plugs in different software, so it can help something like a Snitcher or Lead Feeder communicate with something like a Pipedrive, so that way these leads that you're capturing are going straight into the CRM, and you're not creating a bunch of manual work for yourself. That's a huge time saver.
Yeah. So Joe, what are your thoughts on lead capture? You have much experience with it. What are your thoughts on and where you see this fitting?
So I don't have a ton of experience with setting this. I'm actually, we'll peek behind the scenes, gonna be picking David's brain about some of the things you mentioned there next week. But I've done both sides. I worked at a company where you prospect your own stuff, you find all your own leads, and that's really doing it. There's got to be a better way kind of infomercial moment, because you could do that. It's just, I think it accounts for most of my gray hair, and it's stressful. So you can make these easier. If you have these people coming, they're interested anyways, you have that attention in that moment.
Yeah.
It makes sense to gather more than just the people, that would sign up. Now that's where a lot of our customers come from, just inbound stuff. A lot of signups. Our marketing department has been killing it the whole time I've been here. So they make the life of a salesperson a lot easier. Yeah. I will say, similar to the spreadsheet topic though, I'll talk to people that sometimes are using like kind of a bolt-on CRM added on to an email marketing tool, but they're not really built for that. And so, like to David's point, where you want to make sure you're feeding this stuff. If you are capturing leads, if you're spending money on leads, if you're, using email marketing tools, you want to have them somewhere. If not for this moment, for some down the road. So I would maybe tie back to the previous thing, where if you are capturing leads, make sure it has somewhere to go, like David said. But thankfully we've got a ton of signups and customers to talk to who are already aware, have already seen our product. So
one other thing I'll mention, actually, you brought up, Joe, the other day when we were talking, that I thought was interesting. We were talking about lead capture, and you immediately went to chat. And to me, I actually thought that was a really good insight, because that's not something people normally think of as a lead capture platform, but it absolutely is. And you guys actually have done some development around it, right?
Yeah. So I'm dropping the ball here on my side. We have a great tool called Lead Booster. So it offers, there's a chat bot where you can basically build a playbook. If you get a lot of bad leads, you can make the goal to disqualify them. If you want to make sure, you can add qualification to it, or you can make it very easy for them to get in touch. You've got a live chat. There's a web form. There's a website visitors tool as well that you can use to sort of track and convert who's on your website into a lead. And Prospector, which is more of it's like a database. Like, so if you use like a Zoom Info and you're looking for leads, so there's a lot of different ways to do it depending on your approach. But we've added Lead Booster as well. So which has been huge for us as a company, but also for our customers. They just love it as well. So there's a lot of, maybe more of a lightweight tool. It gives you a few tools in one for a pretty good, pretty reasonable add-on price to the Pipedrive platform.
Yeah, no, that's good, Joe. And I appreciate you sharing that because I think there's, we're all here to learn, and there's things I think David you've done that Joe hasn't done yet, and we're learning from each other, and vice versa. So, I'd love to ask the audience, any of you guys using a lead capture, maybe in the chat window? I've got the chat window up now, so I'm looking at some of the stuff that you guys are sharing. So, love to hear from you guys. Are you using any kind of lead captures like Snitcher, Lead Feeder, et cetera? Pipedrive Lead Booster. There you go. Good to see. Any others that are, just go ahead and share that, because I think there's maybe some folks on here that might consider what you guys are using outside of the ones that we mentioned. But I'd love to take it to app number 3, and that's around data services. I think one of the critical things is you're capturing leads and you're really trying to understand the prospect, understand the lead, the contact. Is do you have a comprehensive view? Do you have a full set of data to really understand that? So, David, maybe walk us through how you think about data services. How does it really help the team at Kixie in selling and really understanding your customers to be better at selling?
Totally. Joe actually started mentioning it a minute ago when he mentioned probably the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is ZoomInfo, right? Data services I think of as basically you've got a CRM, you've got Pipedrive, you've now got a lead capture platform, whether it's Lead Feeder, Snitcher, you've got chat, you're getting new leads in that way. You've got a sign up form on your website, you're getting new leads that way. People emailing in, you've all those leads coming in. Now what we want to do is know who the heck these leads are. Like who are these people that are coming in? What's their business about? What in terms of weight, how much time should I be allocating to these different leads, in order to maximize my efficacy as a salesperson? So there's the old-fashioned way of like calling each and every one of these leads and qualifying them, which is ultimately what we want to do. But prior to that step, what we want to do is we want to use that qualification time and all the man hours that you're probably paying pretty hefty sum of money to right now to get qualified sales reps, getting on the phone and qualifying these people. Let's actually, at the very least, get some basic understanding of who these leads are and who we really need to work to get a hold of, because they're a perfect fit, you hear ICP used a lot, like they're an ideal customer profile, and who can we probably abdicate a little bit and get to later because they're probably not a great fit anyway. And so what you probably want at the very least is some kind of platform that can quickly enrich a lot of data and get that data back into the CRM. So again, like there's a lot of different tools I've used. So on the expensive but awesome end is ZoomInfo. On the less expensive but still pretty cool end is like RocketReach. And Pipedrive, and I'm sure Joe will speak this, even has its own insights built into Pipedrive that make it super easy to use too. I don't know if there's too much more to say about it on my end, except that like it will be a great efficacy booster for your team. So it's not like a need to have, but man, will you get more out of your team's efforts by helping them to target and focus their efforts on the leads that are the lowest hanging fruit. Like I just did with that outbound sales team in general. You want to do with leads specifically, right? Go after the low hanging fruit first before you go after the really, really tough ones,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
It's funny because even as we spoke about chat, if you simplify what sales is, right? You're just, you're trying to get somebody to choose your thing, but how can you do that? It's by knowing. So if you're qualifying somebody really well, you're speaking to them, figuring out what they want, where, what they're looking for, what their budget is. Chat's a great option because they literally are saying a lot of the things that they're thinking. They're not just signing up a form. So that's great. Like you have that insight, and we've learned a lot from that. Like what people on our website are wondering, but we've also got, I said we have a lot of inbound leads. So we want to check sometimes and make sure that somebody doesn't put that they're a one-seater when in reality they've got a nice sales team that could benefit from Pipedrive. So there are some, like these lead capture platforms are good, but I found that it goes both ways. Smart VPs of sales will probably just say they're a one-seater a lot of times to try to avoid, you don't want to get called a million times. And a sales rep that sees a big opportunity come in, they might light you up with phone calls. And on the other hand, you'll get people that they'll put down that they have 100 seats, which would be great for us. But they just left their old job. It's just an idea right now. And the 100 seats are 2 or 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you a peek into like when you're choosing how to spend your time. And we have this problem because we have a lot of leads, but it's true for anybody. In sales, all you really have is your time and how you choose to spend it. And so using these things can help you get rid of or focus more on something you might have passed by. So that it's helped us a lot. Smart contact data is a great tool where it's not, it's data enrichment. So you enter in an email for a contact, you hit the button, it searches, got a database. We partner with another company, and we enrich your data with like a LinkedIn profile, where they are in the world, any other information about it. If you do it on the organization, it looks for the domain in the email, so it'll find information about the company. That's really helpful, for our users, for our sales team. There's a bunch of other tools as well that sort of maintain those kind of databases and offer it. But we found it very helpful, especially selling all over the world too. But that, I guess, that's a broader topic.
Well, I'd love to ask love the audience again. Give me a show of hands if you guys are using a data services provider like a Zoom Info or some other data source. I'd love to see if you guys are integrating that and building that into your CRM. I see a couple hands coming in. Yeah, typically this is something I've at least seen from my experiences. I think there's still a lot of room for upside for the data service providers. Sometimes they can be expensive, or they don't quite work as well as what people are expecting. So I think, I wouldn't say it's a special use case, but because I think everyone can benefit from more data, but it's just like finding the right way to integrate it. I would also say that you really need to think about your culture, your operations, your processes, before you invest into any app for that matter. My recommendation always is, tell me about your team. How do you guys operate? How does this app help you do your job better? So interesting to see. It's a very small percentage of our audience. LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I know we've got a question just came out on that. So thank you, Norman, for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. How would that fit in this context, David or Joe? What do you think about like Sales Navigator?
Dude, I know it's so funny. It's almost like that parable of the fish in water, and you ask a fish like, how's the water? It's like, what's water? Same sort of thing with LinkedIn. I forget that it's even an app that we use because I'm in it so much. It's practically a homepage for me. So you're absolutely right. I mean, LinkedIn Sales Nav is kind of like bread and butter. I will say that it's a pretty manual process. So that's the only downside to it. I mean, it's the go-to once data has been enriched. I think that's the place to go.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say, like a really cool thing to do, just a total aside, is to take like LinkedIn Sales Nav and Zapier and Pipedrive and integrate those suckers, because that is awesome. The ability to parse different potential leads on LinkedIn and have those automatically be fed into Pipedrive. And if you've got Pipedrive Insights turned on, it'll automatically give you some extra insights to those leads too. Like, it's a pretty killer combo. So just a quick little pro tip, I guess. Yeah.
That's great. No, that's great. No, pro tips you guys like pro tips? Pro tips. I'm all for the pro tips. I know that's why some of you are here. It's like, okay, what am I going to get out of this?
Yeah, it's easy to implement, like just direct advice rather than kind of the more ephemeral, like, kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and honestly, that's why we wanted to do this, is that there's a lot of theory out there. There's a lot of high level discussions around sales tech. I think we wanted to kind of keep this very practical and pragmatic.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple more to go through, guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Dialer sales engagement. David, obviously this is near and dear to your heart, our hearts here with the Kixie team. So why would someone, we about half our audience here is from sales. Why would they care about a dialer? Why would they care about sales engagement?
Yeah, that is a great question, because that is your tool for making all of your sales. That is the most probably critical element apart from your CRM in terms of your outreach, right? I'm going to try as best I can to be unbiased during this thing. Since I work for obviously a dialer sales engagement platform, right? Like, we automate calling and texting, we integrate it with your CRM, just full disclosure. That said, it doesn't have to be Kixie, but what I would say is you want a dialing platform that is integrated with your CRM, because this is what you don't want. And by integrated, I just mean that all your calls and all your text messages are tracked and recorded automatically in the CRM as you go. I say this because the thing you don't want, that I see all the time, is a salesperson spending half of their time doing outreach to people, calling on prospects, moving deals forward, like actually delivering value to the company, and the other half of their time going back into the CRM after the fact and being like, called so-and-so, spoke for half an hour, talked about moving forward next Wednesday, call with CEO. Like, that is what you don't want. It's what makes salespeople go nuts. It makes them hate the CRM, and it makes them just way less productive. You're now forcing them to do something they're not built to do particularly well. You know what I mean? They're a sports car and you're trying to take them off road, you know? So anyway, my advice would be, first and foremost, get some kind of dialing tool that integrates with your CRM. Secondarily, I would find one that adds some value on top of that. So whether it's Kixi, our ability to like drop automatic voicemail messages if someone doesn't pick up, or send text messaging, that kind of thing, or whether it's some other platform that can, you know, provide some other kind of features similar to that, like being able to dial multiple lines or something like that, some other value just to increase the efficacy of your sales team, you might as well. Because again, it's the kind of thing where like the ROI is so easy to measure. You pay for a platform that increases the ability of your reps to close deals. And if they close more deals than the cost of the platform, then you keep the platform. And if they don't, then you don't. So I mean, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. The very last thing I'll kind of sandwich in here, just because we are giving pro tips, I would choose one, and Kixi is one of these, that can integrate with the automations of the CRM. And again, this is kind of like more advanced stage, but in my mind, one of the most important things I look for with the CRM is the ability to automate busy work. So I'll give you a perfect example. We spoke in the very beginning of this. I had said, like, you know, we have we went from the 3 steps in the spreadsheet to like, you know, a set of series of like 5 granular steps where it was like new lead came in, email sent out, email opened, lead engaged with, that kind of thing. As soon as someone opens an email, like in Pipedrive has automatic email tracking. You send an email through Pipedrive, you know the minute someone's opened it. Pipedrive also has automations. The minute they open that email, that deal should automatically get moved over to the next stage. Kixi integrates with that, so we can automatically text the person the minute they fall into that stage. So a salesperson comes in the morning after having sent out all their emails the day before. They know immediately who's engaged with those emails, and they know those people have already gotten automatic text messages from them before they even woke up that morning. And now all they got to do is reply to the text messages they've gotten in and engage with those customers and go after the ones who have. Like, that's how you should do it. So it doesn't have to be Kixi, but I would pick something that integrates with the CRM, adds additional value besides just being able to make calls off a headset like I'm doing now, tracks and records those calls in the CRM. And then if you really want to like move your game up to the next level, find one that integrates with automations, because it is so cool. That's just a small little preview of what you can do with automations, but you can essentially like double the efficacy of your whole sales team by just automating busy work.
Yeah. And that's what I see time and time again, David, is like, I can take a single sales rep and it's almost like I can turn them into 3 sales reps from 10 years ago. Right. I mean, just the scale, the amount of efficiency you can drive with something like Kixi is pretty incredible. Joe, what are some of your thoughts around kind of the dialer space, sales engagement? You know, what are you seeing on your side?
Yeah, I think if you tie it back to what it provides, right, which is extra time in the day. So I've had people that bought Pipedrive because the mobile app has an option that says, because you can make a call from your mobile app if you're a field salesperson, and when you hang up, the little window to add an activity will be there.
Yep.
And people are like, oh, I love that, because they're looking to gain those seconds. And when you think about like a day, you don't think, oh, I wasted 30 seconds between each call, but like in my previous role, like a couple of companies ago, we had sales math laid out where it was like, I can make 100, if I make 100 dials, I should schedule 5 demos. On average, 2 of them will show up. And then we have like a 15% close rate off the demos, right? And so really the top of the funnel there, right, is the dials. But if in between each one, I have to go, like I was telling David, we used to go copy the phone number from Pipedrive and then paste it into our support software that had a phone added to it, because we did phone support too. And I'd have to then go write the activity and do. And if you can, it may sound like a couple seconds here or there, but
well, that's real money.
Totally, 100%. Yeah.
It's money, and it's also that like sales. Like I ended up in sales, right? I was an economics major. I thought I was gonna do a lot of things, and I'm in sales, and I love it because that's what I can do. But I'm not so good at the documenting my own day kind of thing, right? And salespeople won't do it at the end. So the more of that stuff you can take out of their hands, and the more like you're saying, they're not built to go off road. You want them on the phone, close deals. And then since sales is so aligned with the company, everybody's making more money. And so the more things you can get out of a salesperson's way, put them on the phone with the right person. And this is just one step to having that happen more frequently.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to probably steal some of David's tricks here, but just hearing as a sales operations guy, my brain's going off like trying to write some of this stuff down. But
well, totally. And that's, that's even from a salesperson's. Imagine from a manager. So Joe, you're talking about like saving you a couple seconds after every call, across hours, across days. As a manager, you multiply that across your entire team, and you look at the salary you're paying these people to make these calls, and you're like, oh my God, this is costing me quite a bit, the inefficiencies in my business. You know what I mean? And I can really squeeze those out pretty quickly with technology that's out there. It's not like, hypothetical, it's out there.
Well, I would say kind of the way I've always looked at what technology should do is remove friction. Like friction to me is a sales rep not spending time selling, engaging, talking to customers, but going into a tool to enter data, right? Or do something, anything that's taking them off the game, if you will, of engaging customers, working leads, prospecting, selling. If I'm having to spend more time over here doing this other stuff just to keep the systems clean and the data fed, et cetera, that's less time I'm doing the most important thing, which is why you're being paid and how you make money, which is selling. So I think it's critical. So to me, the dialer is like, everybody needs help. Everybody needs an assistant, and the dialer is basically the sales rep's assistant to do all that friction stuff. Call ups, dropping automatic voicemails, responding, or dropping text messages, et cetera. If you can automate a lot of that stuff, and of course personalize it, gives the rep much more time to focus on the follow up of the accounts of the prospects that matter. So great stuff. I know we've got one more here I want to share with our attendees here, and that's conversation intelligence. I think this is kind of an emerging space. We've seen quite a bit of growth here. Really interesting space. Some might call this transcription. I know the conversation intelligence companies would hate that.
They hate it.
But just But at the end of the day, it's like there's a lot of talking between sales reps and prospects. If you can record that and kind of digitize that, and then later learn from it, drive insights, get data from it, et cetera. I think that's really what conversation intelligence is about. So maybe David, if you want to start on this one and see, tell us what you think.
Yeah, I've got an interesting perspective on conversational intelligence. I think it's useful for two things. I think the more obvious one is the transcription that they hate when we use the word to describe what they do, but that they do. The second aspect that I think is less obvious is the ability to effectively scale managers. So a lot of what we talked about is about scaling a sales team without having to double your headcount, right? We're going to automate some of our calling and texting. We're going to automate our email drip. You've already probably been doing that for years through MarTech. You can do that right through Pipedrive. They've got great automations to automate emails. You've got email tracking, and you've got all this stuff to double the efficacy of your marketing team, to double the efficacy of the number of calls an agent can make, and the number of text messages they can send out, to increase the connection rate of your agents with prospects by using like the ability to dial with local area code numbers so they pick up the phone, that kind of stuff. You've got all these great things for multiplying your sales team and your marketing team. What about the managers though, right? These are actually the hardest people to hire and train and ramp up and put into place. And they also have turnover. You get a great manager, you love them, you scale them up, you ask more and more of one person, say, we've doubled the sales team size, we need you to handle managing all these extra headcount. And then that extra pressure causes them to leave, or just it's untenable to monitor more than, like, let's say 10 direct reports. When you start getting to 20 or 30, it's pretty arduous, right? So in a large way, I see conversational intelligence being helpful for that. Being able to take a manager and say, you know what, you don't have the time to listen to all 10 agents on the phone all day and hear what's being said. And you're already stretched thin with all the one-on-ones you've got to have, interdepartmental meetings. Maybe you have your own individual contributor, revenue share that you're bringing in every month. I can't ask you to review every call, but what we can do is take something, and I like throwing names out there to make it feel more real world. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is Gong. It's huge. It's also not cheap. There's some cheaper ones too, like ExecVision. There's even Balto that we integrate with that does kind of call coaching while you're mid call, all this kind of stuff. And essentially what you can do in these platforms is set flags. So anytime someone says hey, the word price or ready to buy or whatever, flag those conversations. So now as a manager, I can use my time effectively and go after those. In an interesting way, it's sort of the same thing we were talking about with lead enrichment, right? With data enrichment, where we were having a platform, look at all these leads coming in and help ascertain what leads deserve the most attention from my reps so they can use their time wisely. For me, conversational intelligence, we use Gong here at Kixie, we integrate with it, but there's tons of them out there. I do the same thing with Gong. Which conversations should I be reviewing? Which conversations should I be have an eye out for? Which reps should I try and jump into a 20-minute huddle to discuss a impediment that I see coming down the road because of a conversation I heard on Gong and I had a flag come up. That's kind of how I use it. That said, I feel like, and this is, I think, is a shared experience with all the people I talk to, that while we have conversational intelligence, I feel like I am using such a small portion of what I should be out of this platform. Like, like you mentioned, Matt, it is an early adoption stage, and I feel like I'm squeezing very little juice out of these amazing lemons that I'm getting from Gong. Maybe lemon's the wrong fruit, but yes, yeah.
Oranges.
Oranges is probably better. Yeah, let's just go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Joe, what are your thoughts? And as you're answering, Joe, I'd love to hear from the attendees. Anyone using conversation intelligence, Gong, Exec Vision, Balto, any of those tools, love to see it. Just give me a show of hands. I'm curious as to of our attendees with us here. How many of you using this or even considering this? Is this something that you're looking at for your CRM? But Joe, I'd love to hear your thoughts on maybe what this does for sales rep training or management overview or some of those insights. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's interesting because it gives you, like, our last group of salespeople ramped at home, right? We trained them, they ramped at home. And so and the world's kind of going, hopefully, I hope I'm back in the office soon. I'm kind of done with the work from home thing, but that's kind of the way the world's going. And you don't really know what's being said on these calls as much. And so to get more of an overview, it's another type of metric. So I remember the first time I saw our sales team charted out, Exec Vision has a chart where it shows the ratio of talking to listening that you do. And I was the worst on the team with how much I talk compared to how much I listen. I talk a lot. Sometimes I get going, and for me, that's not something I do consciously. So that's a good metric for me, who wants to say everything, but you have a finite amount of space. Like, for coaching for myself, it's like, hey, shut up, ask better questions, and let them talk and sell themselves on the product, right? It's a whole other kind of metric. Also, as somebody that now I'm kind of responsible for, we want to incentivize salespeople, not just with the quota, but like behaviors. But dials and talk time are very blunt instruments to sort of gauge who's doing the most, or who. You can have somebody that makes 400 dials in a day, doesn't connect with anybody. That's not what we want. Or you can have somebody that has 8 hours of talk time a day, they talk to one person. We don't want that either. So, like, being able to drive the right behaviors, which is all sales is, right? Is like you build an incentive structure for people to come and then just sell as much as they can. Part of me, like the transcription thing, you think, oh, someone's listening all day, but it really just helps you zone in, because that's your craft, right? Is talking, selling things, and to add more dimensions to that, I think is like super valuable, and also allows someone like David to coach from home if he has to.
Totally. Yeah, I have to. I'm so happy to be back in the office. So yeah, Joe actually mentioned something interesting that I hadn't put two and two together about before, which is conversational intelligence. This kind of term, this phrase has been coined and really taken ownership of by Gong and the other people in this space. But actually, thinking of it in a broader context, it also includes the things that Joe mentioned, like those more blunt instruments that are so important. Like, for those of you who don't have a Gong and don't, transcriptions maybe a little bit not where you're at right now. Like, just having reports at the very least of how much your people are talking, how many calls they're making, how many calls are being answered by live people, like all those, capturing that data, capturing that conversational intelligence inside your CRM is pretty paramount. So Pipedrive, and I'll give another shout out to them, does an awesome job, but they've got a whole reports and insights section. Like the new insights tab has a whole bunch of pre-built reports that capture all that kind of stuff, like whether it's emails being sent and received, whether it's actions on the part of the salesperson moving deals through different stages of the pipeline, calls, total talk time versus average talk time if you've got an integrated dialer like Kixi, like that kind of stuff is super important too. So I know we kind of went into the more advanced kind of, true like conversational intelligence as in terms of scaling like a leadership role, but it also is useful just on a sales team, member level, just in terms of tracking what they're doing throughout the day. You know what I mean?
No, that's great. Both of you guys are sharing some great insights.
Yeah.
I've seen some great use cases with this around. And Joe, I think you kind of nailed it. It's like, look, if there's a metric I can kind of call out and show me like how I'm performing, listening versus talking, that's a great opportunity for self-coaching, self-improvement. It's like, look, maybe I need to listen more, talk less, whatever it might be. Maybe I need to dial more, spending too much time sifting through and not actually acting or executing. So I think that there's some great stuff. And I think if we were to tie this all together, kind of starting, going back to where we started, which is what's the foundation for that sales tech stack, CRM? What are the apps, the tools on top of that? Lead capture, data services, dialer engagement, conversation intelligence. Obviously, there's more apps beyond this, but I think as I see it, David, as you see it, Joe, as you see it, I think these are really the core ones that, if you're joining us today, these are the ones that you should be considering or thinking about. We're happy to engage further on this directly. We'd love to get to Q&A, in fact, but before we do, you guys stuck around with us for this whole time. Yeah. Appreciate that. I know a couple had to drop off for Celtic football, also called soccer here in the US. So those of you over in Europe and the UK, appreciate you guys sticking around tonight for this. 2 offers, one from Kixi, one from Pipedrive. If you sign up for Kixi this week and you reference this webinar, you're going to get a month free. It's great value. Go to Kixi.com. You'll see that free trial button. Go ahead and submit that. Once the rep engaged, just let them know, hey, I was part of that webinar with Kixi and Pipedrive. We'll take care of you. Get that month free. For Pipedrive, you're going to get 25% off your first 3 months. Real easy, pipedrive.live/Kixi, pipedrive.live/Kixi. So go there, bookmark that now, and you'll get that 25% off your first 3 months. So appreciate it for Kixi and
a longer trial, I should say. It's usually 14 days. You get 30. So
cool, awesome.
A little bit free too. Sorry, I should mention.
Great, even better, sweetening the deal. I love it. So let's go to questions. I know we've had some questions coming in from the audience along the way. I've got a few up here. Actually, we had one interesting around WhatsApp. And David, maybe is WhatsApp integrating with CRM and Pipedrive and even Kixi. I mean, where do you see WhatsApp in the context of this space?
Yeah, it's for me, I'm as omni-channel as possible. So I'm all about wherever your customers are, reach them there, as opposed to trying to convince them to meet you where you are at. So I'll tell you where I see WhatsApp the most, honestly, is in dealing with South America. So I deal with a lot of customers in South America, and it's huge down there. You know what I mean? Bigger than texting is. So like we automate calling and texting. We don't automate the WhatsApp stuff, but there is, and I'm blanking on the name. We can throw it up in show notes or something. There is a company that does WhatsApp automation. And again, the thing I would look for if you're looking for a WhatsApp automation platform, one, I would find something that lets you automate some WhatsApp texting as opposed to just letting you text, because there's platforms that do both. And honestly, I don't think the price difference is going to be too much different between the two. And I'm all about automation as much as possible. And the thing I would look for with those platforms, I remember having worked with that one before, whose name I'm blanking on, is that it had a Zapier integration. Yep. If you're ever in doubt as to whether you should buy a platform or not, and whether that platform is going to integrate with your CRM like Pipedrive, I would ask if they have a Zapier integration. If they do, chances are you're going to be golden. There's going to be a way to take that platform and easily be piping that data into Pipedrive after the fact. The cool thing about Pipedrive, they don't charge you for like API access or the ability to integrate Zapier with it, as opposed to like other CRMs that do include sales in the name. So I would make that like a real delineating factor to look at if you're looking for a platform that does that, and meet your customers where they are. So LinkedIn messaging, I didn't mention either, but we do LinkedIn messaging in mails. We sequence those out too and have those integrated with Pipedrive as well.
Okay.
Through Zapier. So like I'm all about it as omni-channel as possible.
Yeah. Super powerful. No, well, speaking of that, because we have another question from Steven around bringing leads into Pipedrive from Facebook and Instagram Messenger. Joe, any insights you can share around kind of lead capture from Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, those kinds of channels?
It's hard. It's hard with Messenger because, like, so just from my experience, like if you're using like Facebook lead ads or the Instagram, the equivalent of those, they integrate through Zapier. There's LeadsBridge, which is similar to Zapier will basically help you automate any part of your platform and a bunch of others. LeadsBridge is, I think, more so sending leads from various sources into your CRM. And from what I understand, like, the lead ads that they give you, you can get those to come in, but I'm not sure about automating it from actual Messenger itself. Maybe, I don't know if David, you have a different experience with that. That might be a more manual copy over into your CRM from there, at least in my experience trying to integrate these things.
Yeah. Okay. I know we've got about a minute left. I had another question here from Saeed around they sell point of sale solutions for restaurants. Does Pipedrive Kixi provide customer or somehow allows access to a data bank? So I think that maybe the question is the data that's maybe beyond Pipedrive Kixi. We kind of covered that a little bit around the data services, but how would you answer that, Joe?
So we've got a tool called Prospector. It's part of Lead Booster. You pay for credits, right? And so basically you go through, you can adjust where you're looking for a prospect, what their job title might be, what industry they might be in. If it looks good to you, you then use a credit, which will give you their contact information. And you can report bad leads as well, which is usually the first question people ask. So yeah, as part of Lead Booster, you'd get that visibility.
Okay.
Then yeah, there are other integrations. We have an open API, so we integrate with, like, our marketplace has a ton of stuff. So it's not just that. Although Lead Booster is great, Zapier as well. So it's kind of wide open there. But that's what I'd probably recommend first.
That's another pro tip I'll just mention because I think it's really important for people to listen to who haven't been exposed to it. If you're looking at a CRM, find one that has an open API. Find one that has API access, like to allow it to integrate with a tool like Zapier, and that doesn't put it behind a giant paywall. I mean, it's something that Pipedrive does a really good job at. Nope, it's something hardly anybody thinks of when you go to adopt a CRM. It's probably the last question you'd ever ask, right? Such a weird question, but ask it. Does it have an open API access? Does it have the ability to use API access to integrate with like Zapier? And if they say yes, cool. Does that cost anything extra? Because a lot of times what I found is people adopt the CRM, they migrate onto it, super cool, they're happy with it. It performs all the basic functions we talked about earlier on in this webinar. And now they want to really take their business to the next level and automate. And oh yeah, they're going to have to spend 3/4 of the entire price they paid for their CRM in order to get API access. It's behind some other paywall, or the CRM doesn't do it. Now they're going to, debate migrating to a whole nother CRM just for that. Yeah. If you're looking at it early and you have the flexibility to decide on a CRM now, ask those questions. It's great. It'll pay off in the future. I guarantee it.
No, great insights, David, as always. Joe as well. Want to thank both of you guys again. For those of you who stuck around with us, appreciate you guys joining us. 1 month free of Kixi, 25% off your first 3 months, and extended trial there. So want to thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate great insights as always. Love talking about with you guys, and thank you all for joining. And look out for the next one. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.